Okay. Wonderful. So, thank you for joining the Ursula Franklin Women in Engineering panel. To tell you a little bit about the name of this event, so Professor Ursula Franklin was a faculty member at U of T Engineering and the first woman to receive the title of university professor, which is the highest academic rank at U of T. That category is now material science and engineering. So, at the time, wasn't called that. Her accomplishments as a physicist, scientist, and engineer include pioneering the field of archaeometry, where modern material science is applied to the dating of archaeological artifacts. So she was a leader at the intersection of technology and humanity and an advocate for the social responsibility of engineering. We have named our initiatives where we highlight our female community at U of T Engineering after Professor Ursula Franklin as a reminder of her achievements and her contributions towards creating a path for gender diversity in science and engineering. I always love learning something new every day, and I feel like that's a fun tidbit to know. Uh, Now to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Stephanie. I graduated from mechanical engineering at U of T, and I'm currently the recruitment coordinator here with the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. I'm also joined on the back end by my colleague Katie, who's going to be supporting with some of the questions in the Q&A. We're also joined by three amazing panelists who I will introduce soon. To touch a little bit about the layout tonight, we're going to start out with some introductory questions so that you can get to know them and their experiences a little bit better. And then we can open it up to your questions. So if folks have anything that you want to ask, feel free. The Q&A chat feature is open. And please make use of it for things that come off the top of your head. If we're not able to answer them tonight, Katie may ask you to send us an email and she'll provide that in the chat, or we might be able to get to your question. But yeah, there's always our email for anything that gets unanswered. And with that, let's meet our panelists. So tonight we are joined by Joelle, who studied material science engineering and is the chief engineer at the Technical Standards and Safety Authority in the Elevating and Amusement Devices Department, which is so cool. We also are joined by Tessa, who studied industrial engineering and is now a manager in information management and business analytics at the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. Also really cool. And finally we have Lauren, who studied electrical engineering and is currently doing her PhD at the University of Washington in Seattle. Three for three, extremely cool positions, extremely cool people. And what a fantastic group. I'm so excited to be chatting with you all and just to hear you talk about your experiences. We can get into some questions and potentially we'll follow an order just kind of to make that move smoothly. So we'll likely go Tessa, Lauren, and then Joelle. And to start us off, please feel free to introduce yourselves. Whether you want to chat like just about the program you're in or even just your current experience right now.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll kick us off. So like Stephanie mentioned, I did industrial engineering. I did do most of my degree part-time while I was working two jobs on campus. So if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah, I'm the manager of information management and business analytics at the CPSO. So my team is responsible for all data and reporting, information governance, and document and records management.
Wonderful. Amazing.
I can go next. My name's Lauren. I graduated from the energy option of engineering science, and I'm now doing my PhD in electrical engineering at the University of Washington. And my research that I'm currently working on is trying to understand how renewables like wind, solar, and batteries interact with the rest of the power grid and help design new ways to control these resources to help lights stay on as we decarbonize our power systems.
Amazing. Amazing.
Oh, those are all pretty cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Joelle Javier. I graduated material science in 2010 from U of T, and I did my master's in mechanical engineering at TMU. And currently, I'm the chief engineer at TSSA for the elevating and amusement devices field. And it's actually dark here where I am right now because I just stepped out. I was in the middle of a conference for amusement device inspectors. So we hold this every year, and I get to teach some of the courses along with other experts in the industry. So basically, our field is to make sure everyone is safe when riding amusement rides.
Incredible, incredible. Wonderful. And even just to, I guess, segue since we've all kind of chatted about what we're doing, if you wanted to take us through just just some day-to-day responsibilities or even like what your life looks like currently in your different roles.
Sure, yeah. So over the last few years, my job has changed a lot. I started at the CPSO as a data analyst. So I was doing a lot more queries, report building, more kind of dev work. And now as a manager, most of my day-to-day work is sitting in Teams calls, making decisions about work and those reports and those queries, and less about the hands-on keys work itself. So my team started as 4, we're now 12, and we've taken on the information governance and document records sections as well. So I'm making decisions from what data are we sending to the Ministry of Health to should we scan these documents or just destroy them. So it's a little bit different, but yeah, that's what my day-to-day kind of looks like.
Definitely a range there. Definitely
Yeah,
like
a
goes
little
on.
bit.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
My day to day, when I initially graduated from U of T, I worked at a typical like 9 to 5 job for a year first, and that was a lot of coding, a lot of meeting with my supervisors and people managing the projects I was on, and kind of like your standard like desk or office job. But now that I'm back being a student again, I think I get a benefit from a lot of the flexibility that the student life gives you. So I only take 1 to 2 courses per quarter here, and most of my time is spent on research. So I meet weekly with my advisor. I split time between kind of like working on theory, so thinking about like math and equations, and then coding stuff up to simulate it and see if what happens in practice is what we expect. And I think also a cool thing about being a PhD student is the opportunities to travel and go to conferences. I'm trying to, like, right now, looking into doing a research exchange in France for a quarter. So there's a lot of cool opportunities that come up. And I get to put off the decision of figuring out whether to go back to a 9 to 5 one day.
And and the opportunity of choice. That's
Yes.
the best part. That's
Mhm.
what a cool, oh my gosh, what a cool place to be where you get to kind of dip your toe in so many different things and like really get to experiment. I love that. And
Yes.
so funny, speaking of conferences, Joelle, you're at one right now.
Yeah, I think Lauren, like you hit the nail on the head. Like one of my favorite things about work in general is all these conferences that we get to attend, both as a participant and sometimes as speakers as well. When I started at CSSA, I started as an engineer. So what I used to do then was to review design submissions, making sure that everything is code compliant. And then once the paperwork meets engineering, this rides and elevators, they get inspected. So basically in the province of Ontario, oh, well, this turned off, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Uh, um, in the province of Ontario, like you can be rest assured that all our elevators, escalators, passenger ropeways, and rides are very safe. And nowadays, in the last 2 years, I moved on in the manager role. So we have a team of 11 engineers. So I have 6 mechanical engineers and 5 electrical engineers in my team. And that's been quite fun. Part of our job as well is doing this public speaking thing and teaching to make sure that everyone gets into the same page when it comes to safety.
That's so awesome. As someone who like, I love roller coasters, like the idea of, I obviously engineers are involved in that, but I feel like I didn't realize that there's so many moving pieces behind that, and so cool to be a part of that. That's wonderful. Amazing, amazing. And another question for you all, and this one kind of a grand one, I guess. Why did you choose engineering? What kind of led you to that?
So I will say, Stephanie, just to your last point, I think as you go through engineering and graduate, you realize how much engineering is everywhere,
Yeah.
which to your question is something I didn't really understand in high school. So I really liked math and science. And my mom actually worked at U of T. She worked in more of an admin role. But she, had heard about engineering and she was like, you know what? I hear, classic parent answer, I hear you can get a good job after you graduate if you try out engineering. And so she forced me to go to an information session. And while I was sitting there, one of my would-be professors, Michael Carter, was walking through an example of industrial engineering in an OR. And I was like, wow, that's engineering. Like, that is so cool. Sign me up. And I applied to Indy right away. My application was in super early, super nerdy. But I was sold on the healthcare aspects of engineering because, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. When you think engineering, I had thought more, civil engineering and watching him talk about reducing wait times and where you put certain surgical instruments in an OR can make a difference to patient outcomes. I just thought that was so cool.
Oh my goodness. I completely agree. I feel like I didn't even know about, like, I didn't know much about industrial engineering, like, to kind of like from a get-go. Like, you kind of know, you have your own idea of what you think engineering relates to, but then, like, hearing about all of that, and as you said, like, the healthcare side of things, where it can get, like, really fascinating of, like, how it segues and how it intersects into so many different areas. That's awesome. That's wonderful. And then what about yourself, Lauren?
Yeah, I think for me, I also was very into math and physics in particular in high school. That didn't mean that I understood what engineering was, but my dad was a civil engineer, so I was like, well, he designs roads. I'm not sure that that was what I really wanted to work on, but that was the only tangible idea of an engineer that I had. But what I gathered from talking to different people was engineering felt like a good way to tackle problems, and specifically the problem that interested me the most or kind of drove a lot of my decision making was my interest in the environment and wanting to improve sustainability. And so I didn't necessarily know exactly within that what I wanted to do, but it felt like through process of elimination almost that engineering would be the best way to go about making some sort of impact there. Obviously, like doing the science behind it, understanding things that are happening with the climate or understanding the way that the ocean changes, those are all really important, but it kind of felt like engineering was the way to do something about those changes and those scientific observations. And so that was kind of why I picked engineering in the first place.
I really love that. Like that drive to like want to like think about solving those problems. Like
Mhm.
I always found that really fascinating that I feel like it was said to be once in first year, like the fact that like engineers are like facing just problems that face humanity. And I always think that that's like such a cool concept in general. And what a good place for you. Engineering science having the energy stream, that's awesome. And then Joelle, what about yourself?
Yeah, so kind of similar to both of them. My dad is also an engineer, so he's a mechanical engineer, still is, and he works with chickens. But I actually wanted to be a doctor originally. And with my interest in healthcare, I knew that to go to med school, you need a pre-med. And at the time, my mom was also like, "Oh, why don't you go into nursing?" But I didn't feel like nursing was my calling. So I'm like, okay, well, I think engineering would still be a good pre-med. And if it doesn't work out and I don't want to be a doctor, I'll still be an engineer. So that's kind of like the beginning of that. And I ended up falling in love. So now I stuck to engineering and it's been really good.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I really love that. That's lovely. Yeah. Like and kind of finding like how you said, I feel like that's such a hard thing to kind of know like what is the right fit for you and you coming into engineering and figuring out like this is it. This is for me. Like that's such an awesome discovery. That's wonderful. And then to take it to another question. So I know we've kind of chatted about your like where you each are now, but just kind of like I guess if you wanted to lead on for or continue and discuss your process, where's your career taking you since graduation, and did you know that you wanted to go in, specifically in the field you are now? I know we kind of chatted about it with saying why you chose engineering, but yeah, if you wanted to touch upon a little further.
Sure. So, as you can probably tell from why I chose engineering, I knew I wanted to get into healthcare. I actually worked in undergrad. I mentioned I worked two jobs. One of them was with Professor Carter's lab for about 3 years. So I knew that kind of in the healthcare engineering space is where I wanted to end up. I ended up getting kind of sick after graduation. I'm fine now. It was just a temporary thing. But I worked part-time at a healthcare startup during that period because I couldn't work full-time. And then I was looking for something in more of a healthcare operations space, like healthcare optimization. And then I saw this job at the CPSO come up, and it was in data. And I hemmed and hawed about it because, I was really looking for something more on optimizing, less on pulling data all day. I knew SQL and Python, but wasn't sure if that's kind of where I saw myself all the time. But I was like, you know what? A full-time job is a full-time job. Let's try it out. And I always used to hear that it's easier to find a new job when you have a job because there's less stress about finding one right away. So I was like, let me try this out, even if it's only a couple of years. we'll see how it goes. That was 7 years ago. And several jobs through the CPSO later. So I ended up really liking the data part, and I ended up having a really good manager, now director, and she helped me see that I loved healthcare, but I also really loved tech. And I got to take the team through a bunch of big technical changes. We started on Microsoft Access. I don't even know if it exists anymore. It was terrible. And now we're on Microsoft Fabric, which is kind of their newest product. So it's been really cool to kind of get to be responsible for big technical leaps on the team. And I'm glad I gave it a chance, obviously, because it led me somewhere that I didn't see myself going.
Oh, that's amazing. I always find that so like exciting when you kind of try out a path and you're like, let's see what happens. And then it ends up being something that you wouldn't have normally considered because that's all, I feel like that's all, what a great way to find something that you love. It's like you trying it out and you seeing what you like, which I feel like is such an important message. Like in your undergrad, just like trying different things, taking different courses, things like that. Even actually, Tessa, there's a question in the chat that I'll kind of like include in this, and as you're talking about this right now, where they just asked, what did you enjoy like most about industrial engineering?
Um, yeah, I really enjoyed the optimization classes. So I also really enjoyed human factors. So part of what I was looking for in like the healthcare optimization is the intersection between that. So a lot of the work I was doing with Professor Carter was, forecasting space we would need for pharmacy space, like why do pharmacies need so much space? Why do drugs take so much room to store? And we were looking at, how do we bring tech into a floor, like a hospital floor, to be able to better facilitate nurse and doctor communication. So I'm really lucky that I got to experience a lot of that in undergrad. And like Stephanie said, like take advantage of those experiences because those weren't necessarily things that were in my courses. I got a flavor of it in my course, and then it's something that I got to get the experience of outside to see what kind of really fired me up. And I ended up doing my master's in health informatics at U of T too, um, just for some more knowledge in that and like kind of figuring out what's going on now in the health tech space. So yeah, I guess that was my favorite part. Coursework, does
Yeah.
that make me a nerd? My job?
No. Oh my gosh. Not even one, but it makes you passionate. It makes you passionate and that's important. That's wonderful. And I was gonna like to segue to Lauren, kind of like just a reminder of the question about like, did you know you always wanted to go into the field you are like you like pursued kind of doing further education? Like was that something you knew or like from when you were working? Is that something that kind of popped into your mind?
Yeah, I think it was definitely something that evolved as I went. So, I mean, even starting in engineering, I actually initially applied to and started in chemical engineering. And it was only through my first year that I realized that my environmental interests specifically were in energy. And so that's kind of why I switched into energy. And then within energy, the next few years, between the 3 years left I had at U of T, as well as the professional experience year that I did, it was kind of exploring different aspects of energy and doing my co-op at a decarbonization consulting firm. So working a bit more on the technical and economic side almost of energy and energy policy and kind of the planning scale in terms of thinking about like how do we plan our energy systems, but not the nitty-gritty technical details about like how electricity flows through the power grid and stuff like that. And I kind of landed there because I thought that that was maybe the best place or the place that had the most barriers to renewable energy adoption. And I wasn't sure that it was necessarily the stuff that interested me the most, but I had kind of thought that that was, yeah, maybe the most important place to be working. And it was only through talking to a bunch of professors in my fourth year power systems classes at U of T that when they told me about their technical research and kind of the barriers that they were trying to solve that needed to be addressed in order to have the wide scale integration of like wind and solar onto our power grids, I was like, oh, like there's this, it kind of opened up this whole world of technical challenges to renewable integration that really interested me. And I was like, I feel like that's where I want to work. And so I didn't really decide on wanting to go back to school to learn more of those skills that I needed until at the end of my undergrad education and as I began my new job. And so for the next year and a bit, I worked at the National Renewable Energy Lab in the United States. And so there I got to do a lot of that was kind of like a nice mix between industry and research, or yeah, industry and academia, in that you're a national lab researching how to adopt clean energy in different parts of the country. Like I did a big study on how Alaska, the state of Alaska, could decarbonize their main grid up to 80% to get it up to 80% renewable. And so like there was a lot of energy modeling and analysis there. And so I got a lot of practical experience and then ultimately wanted to go back to school to kind of get at the heart of the electrical engineering fundamentals that underlie how the power grid works and how those fundamentally change when you now have renewables on the system. And so it was a gradual identification of the problem space that I wanted to work on. And what I'm working on now is something that I did not know existed, honestly, by my third year of undergrad, let alone in high school, for example. So, and now after this, I think after my degree, the ideal would be to go work potentially at some big like network or system operator, or maybe back in a research context as well at a national lab or some other industry or some other place like that. But definitely is not something I knew would take me in this direction, but it's just been a process of trial and error and seeing what I liked.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That was what a cool journey. I love like I feel like hearing people talk about that is so like it's so refreshing to know that it's something that it's like collecting pieces of a puzzle and you're just kind
Totally.
of making your puzzle as you go through it, which is so great to hear because I agree like you're continually changing and like what you're passionate about, what you're interested in. I even love what you said about it was the area that you were like, I think this needs to be looked into more. That's so, oh, that's very inspiring. I love that. That's awesome. And Joelle, what about yourself? Did you know you always wanted to go into this? I know you had touched upon like unsure of where you were going to go, whether it was the path of like med school and being a doctor or this, but how you kind of ended up in elevating and amusement devices. Was that like, did that was how did that happen?
Yeah, I honestly didn't even know this field existed. Like I didn't know about regulators, in terms of getting permits for stuff. That's not the I don't did you guys CSSA? They just know that it's gotten so for me, how did I end up here? So when I was choosing my master's program, it was in healthcare. I almost took a project there because I said I wanted to be a doctor. But at the same time, there was one professor, Dr. Catherine Woodcock at CMU. Her study is about human factors, actually. And then she had a project about ejected into spinning amusement. And I'm like, let me take that project on. Fell in love with the amusement variety side. And she's been a mentor to me. That's how I got into this whole ride safety part of it. And it just keeps evolving as well. So while I work with amusements, now I also do stuff with the elevating industry, which, elevator kind of sounds boring and just up and down. But once you get to know knowledge, it's so much more to learn.
Yeah. Yes. I
Yeah.
also I wanted to let you know just your connection may be going in a little bit in and out. I'm not sure if let us
Yeah.
know if like
Oh,
yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
sorry.
Yeah. No. Oh my gosh, you have nothing. Don't even
Yeah.
sweat it. If like at certain points like no worries if like maybe turning camera off would help, but God, I
Yeah, I will do
completely
that.
heard. Yeah. Oh my gosh, no sweat. But yeah, I completely agree that like as you said, like having number one, having a mentor is like such a huge thing in like this field, just to even like have that guidance, and to have someone that like kind of pointed you in a direction that you were like, let me experience this, let me try that. That's wonderful. And to kind of to segue into a new question. So typically, engineering is often seen as a male-dominated space. Have you ever experienced significant obstacles along the way because of this? And in general, how has your experience been as a woman working in STEM?
So I'm pretty lucky that I haven't experienced any significant obstacles. Um, I've experienced the odd comment from a colleague, someone explaining to me that, how a table works when I was a data analyst. And I was like, thank you for that. That's very helpful. But I'm also really lucky that my company is pretty female led. So our CEO is a woman, our COO is a woman, my old director was a woman. So I never really felt like there was barriers for me to get to leadership there. I know it's a pretty unique experience. That's not something everyone gets to experience, but I've been pretty lucky in my career path and where I chose. And part of that, I think, could be in healthcare. I know healthcare tends to be the antithesis to the traditional engineering. Um, um, so I am, yeah, like ending up in healthcare, I feel like they're a more female dominated field. So it's a little bit of a unique experience there, but I'm really lucky that so far I've mostly just faced support.
That's wonderful. And as you said, having individuals like higher up in your company and in general in different organizations is so great because like getting to look up to other women in leadership positions is always I find really exciting and inspiring as well. And that's wonderful that you've had like you've experienced just people supporting you and encouraging you. That's lovely. And Lauren, how about your experience if you wanted to touch a little bit about your path?
Yeah, I would also agree. I've been very lucky in that I haven't faced significant obstacles. I think I've kind of transitioned from when I started in chem engineering, they told us, I remember in our first year orientation, that chem was actually 60-40, 60% women, 40% men. And it was the main or I think it was the discipline with the largest number of, or largest proportion of women in it, which was really great. And then I switched into Eng Sci, which I think was a bit of a less even split or fewer women. And now that I'm in electrical engineering, that's one of the, typically like one of the disciplines with the fewest representation or the fewest number of women in it. So I definitely look around in classes and in my research groups or research environments, and it's often more men than women, which can sometimes make it intimidating to speak up and ask questions in class, for example. But for the most part, I've still found that I'm able to participate fully. There are like occasional instances where, for example, like when I worked full time before coming back to grad school, I would kind of observe that there was a group of people at the lab where I was working whose research most closely related to not what my background was in, but what I wanted to go into for grad school and what I'm doing now. So I didn't necessarily have the skills or knowledge yet to work on that, but it was something I was interested in learning more about. But unfortunately, the group at the lab who worked on it was essentially all men, and they would often just go and grab lunch together at the office and kind of go and do like basically all the ways that like business would go down in informal settings, just like you're kind of hanging out with your work colleagues and talking about this new project or interesting idea over lunch. And it's something that I felt like I would see them come back from, and I'm like, I feel like I could learn a lot of interesting things if I was ever included in that, but I also feel like that's not a place for me. And it would be a different environment if I were there, and I'm also not sure that I want to be in it anyway. And so it's kind of seeing those instances of if there were more women in this space and more women in that specific research area, it would be easier for me to tag along and kind of potentially even get some opportunities out of that. But it's
Mhm.
kind of just something that you navigate and have to learn to advocate for yourself when needed, but there are certain environments that maybe will still have a significant enough ratio of men in it that maybe not every aspect of that environment feels like you're included in.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you even had said that it can just vary so differently in the
Totally.
various like discipline or fields or where you find yourself and having moments where like you I feel like that is it always like is very character defining where you kind of like take the note and as you said like you learn to advocate for yourself and it's something that like you kind of make a mental note in your mind where you're like this is something that I do want to look into more and like finding different ways to go about that. Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing. Wonderful. And then, Joelle, if you also wanted to speak to that as well. I know we got a very different
Yes.
representation of all the disciplines here.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully the audio is a little better.
Yes, it's great. It's
Um,
great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
so I have a mix of both experience. So in terms of management in our company, we have like a female CEO. So that part's been really great. Like a lot of our leadership actually in the VP level are also women. So they've been very supportive. Our engineering team, there's only two of us that's actually women. So it is still a male dominated field, but I've been really lucky that everyone's been supportive. In terms of the industry itself, it is still heavily male dominated. Like in the conference I'm in right now, there's about, let's say, 200 people, and I can count the women in the field is probably 20 in the room. So once in a while, people will think like, "Why are you here? Like, are you someone's daughter? Are you someone's kid? Is that your boss?" Like, they don't realize that, hey, maybe she's the boss, right? So it
The
those
chief
still,
engineer.
yeah,
Yeah.
it still comes up. So it's like sometimes being a woman or being a little bit younger, um, it's a little bit challenging, but it's still good because you can take that as an opportunity to find a way to speak up. And sometimes you do have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit because, kind of like what Lauren said, sometimes they would talk to each other, right? Like, and sometimes the important conversations happen in that circle, but at the same time, they might not mean to exclude you. They just don't know if you're comfortable as well. So once in a while, like I will invite myself, kind of like sometimes it's hard to like wait for that opportunity. So yeah, it takes a little bit of practice. It took me a while as well to get comfortable with that.
Absolutely. I absolutely. I really love what you said just about how in certain moments you kind of create that you open that door you build the door and you open it for yourself in situations like that. And I feel like even that's what makes events like this, or just in general, like where we're able to spotlight like like women in the U of T engineering community, and able to collaborate and talk amongst each other, I think is also just so powerful and empowering in general, to like hear different people's experiences and just know that how other people navigate different things, and learning from that, and also just being able to create your own network of other like women in the maybe perhaps in like your field or in different fields, and being able to like collaborate and like speak with one another and talk about these things, which is I always find so important. But no, thank you all so much for sharing and talking about your experience. We even I know there's some questions in the chat. Um, I I will parse through those. One first, I will also segue into another question, just kind of chatting about if there like has been like a challenge of your like either in your career or your university that you faced and how you overcame it. It can be like really can be anything. If there's something that kind of sticks out to you, where like this was something I like truly persevered through, or even if you want to chat about one of your biggest wins, I'd be happy to hear about either. Yeah.
Sure. So we were talking a little bit about things that define us as people. And I mentioned I was part-time for most of my undergrad, and I had injured my writing arm pretty badly. And so that was the reason that I went part-time. And I don't know if it's different now, but when I was in engineering, part-time wasn't really something you did. It was kind of a badge of honor that you had a full course load, who was busier than who, and how busy, how much were you studying? And I was really embarrassed, honestly, that I had to go part-time. And I was embarrassed to tell people. I was embarrassed it was going to take me longer to graduate. And it really taught me a lot about trusting what I needed and doing what I needed. Because in the end, I would still get to be an engineer. I would still get my degree. And um, really, it worked out for me because I don't think I would have necessarily had the same capacity to work in recruitment and to work for Professor Carter. If I had been taking a full course load, I probably would have had to choose one. And I think both of those jobs really helped define my university career and a lot of the experiences that I got to bring with me in the workforce, both for what I enjoyed, but also just things I use all the time. I work in healthcare, so a lot of what I learned with Professor Carter is still relevant. I communicate all the time. I feel like all I do is talk all day. So a lot of the communication skills and personal skills that I learned from working in recruitment, I carry with me to this day. So what at the time seemed absolutely tragic, I cried about it for weeks, actually ended up being one of the best experiences of my life and ended up really kind of shaping the career that I get to have now.
Oh, I really love that. The like the way you found like you really do you like gain from everything I feel like you experience in life. That's just like a fact. And I completely understand there is that stigma about I'm doing this, it's not the norm. I feel like whenever someone's not doing something that's the norm, it's like, oh no. But like you said, it truly did open opportunities that changed the path you ended up choosing. And it like informed just it like let you try more things, which I think is never a bad thing. Like getting able to try new things. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was lovely. Yeah. What about yourself, Lauren?
Yeah, I think for me, maybe one of the things was it revolves around the decision to go to grad school and kind of as I was wrapping up university, committing to a more technical route. Because as I had mentioned, like doing a co-op at a decarbonization energy consulting firm and kind of starting to get the sense that the most impact to be had in clean energy was in the policy or kind of less technical spaces, I had kind of thought like, okay, like maybe this is just like maybe this is kind of my segue out of engineering. Like maybe this is where um, I got the undergrad skills and I guess problem solving skills that you build in the engineering curriculum, but maybe it kind of ends here and I move into more humanities or less technical spaces. And part of the reason for that felt like because I didn't have something that interested me technically. It felt like I just like other people I would see, so many engineers are super handy building things and kind of like love to, yeah, build stuff with their hands. And that was never me. I was also never like coding in my free time because I find it fun. Like it didn't feel like those kinds of tropes of a classic engineering student really were me. And so I kind of was like, okay, like this might just be my sign that this isn't really the place for me. And I was mostly considering opportunities after graduation that were leaving the technical space. And it was really the courses I took in my last year at the power systems focused electives that through talking to professors, yeah, like I said earlier, kind of had my mind open to all of the technical challenges out there that I previously had never understood or heard of. And I realized that that was what interested me. And it was kind of following my interest through the power systems courses. Like in the third year of the energy option, we had to take, I think it was two power systems courses. And it was kind of identifying at the end of third year, like, okay, those are the courses I liked the most. I'm going to try to take something along those lines in fourth year. And it was taking those. And I think also what I noticed is as you go through university each year, you kind of get to know professors better in your classes, like you engage more with them. And part of that is because it's just smaller classrooms as well. And so I think by that point, like engaging more with the professors I had at that point and getting to learn about their research, it really inspired me to double down on becoming a very like in the weeds technical nitty gritty like kind of engineer in a different way than building things in my garage in my free time or coding up some really efficient software program or whatever. Like I found my own version of it, but it was for the longest time like this almost just doubting or imposter syndrome of like, why am I even in engineering? Like, I just feel like this isn't like the technical space is not my calling. And not to say that to be an engineer, you have to be doing technical things, but it kind of felt like I was pushing myself out of that because I didn't know what else to do. And all it took really was having my mind open to all the things that did interest me within the technical space. And then now I think that that's somewhere that I'm more satisfied and happier being than had I pursued, for example, the policy route, just because at the end of the day, it didn't felt like that really used my strengths. So even though I think that that area of contributing to clean energy is so important and so fundamental to like the energy transition, it just didn't feel like it was my place because I felt like my strengths really still were math and physics, just like back in high school. And so I was really glad to have found that way to use them.
Yes, I really related to what you said with like I didn't code on my in my spare time. I wasn't like doing things. I definitely relate to that. I like it's and I feel like both kind of touches on what Tessa was saying about like making your degree work for you. Like make
Mhm.
truly like customizing it to be most beneficial for you. Like your undergrad, it should be tailored to your career goals, your interests, what's going to be best like for your circumstances. And I love how you did that and you figured out kind of like your path through the technical space because again it really is just kind of like I had said before like a puzzle that's continuously getting like solved pieces are being it's more like jigsaw puzzle I feel like than regular puzzle. But yeah, I really thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. And what about yourself, Joelle?
Uh, to be honest, I kind of got lost being
No
inspired by
problem.
what
I
Lauren
know.
and Tessa said. But
Yeah.
what I can say is, like, in terms of engineering, uh, it really works in terms of trying to get your skills to fit to your own interests as well. Like, for example, for Tessa, she likes healthcare and she found it in data. There's other ways to participate in healthcare while in engineering. You can be a biomedical engineer. You can also be a materials engineer and be making implants, for example. So once you find the field that you like, you can go kind of backwards from there and then find how your skills fit in terms of which type of engineering would work for you, right?
100%. Absolutely. I completely agree. Completely agree. Even one of the questions in the chat is that we kind of all, everyone kind of discussed about how there was like a relative that did engineering that had inspired them. And someone had noted that they also have a relative that inspired them to choose this path. And they were saying, how does it feel to know that you may be that relative that inspires your, whether it be someone you know or someone you're related to pursue engineering? How does, and inspire that next generation?
So I actually think that's really cool. I have a son and a daughter, and I'm currently pregnant with our third, and it's kind of cool to me to think about how my career path can influence my kids. So my dad owned his own business, and my mom, as I said, she worked at U of T, but she never had the chance to go to university. And so I was really the first one who got a chance, thanks to them, to attend university, and I got to go into engineering. And I feel like that difference in my jobs for my parents also shaped how I show up to my own job. And my husband, on the other hand, his parents actually met in U of T engineering. And so he grew up with two parents who knew the field and knew the opportunities. And I even get to see the confidence his sister grew up with around working in a technical field because she knew her mom could do it, right? Her mom grew up working in a technical field. Seeing a woman in engineering was never something strange to her because it was her whole childhood. And I look at her and how she advocates for herself in a different way and how she, reaches out to them for advice in a different way. And I think it's really cool that my kids might get that opportunity because of the career that I chose for myself and the education that I was lucky enough to get. So I mean, maybe they'll want to go into engineering. They might not want to be musicians. We'll see. We'll see where they end up. But if they do decide to go into engineering, it's cool that I have gotten some perspective that I can help pass down to them. And yeah, I just think it's pretty cool.
Oh wow, I was like beaming. I felt like my smile was losing off my face. I really loved. I completely agree. Like it really like getting to see people that you know in different spaces can just change how you view things. Like it's all perspective and like what you know and even in general for like individuals in the chat who are like joining us and seeing all of us, like I feel like that also just kind of like makes you aware of like there's so many people in different spaces and like you belong in any space you want to be in. So that's wonderful. And what about yourself, Lauren? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I was gonna say like I think for me, I grew up so I was pretty close with my mom's two sisters. So there's three of them in the family. My grandparents had three daughters, and my mom is a JD, so had her law was a lawyer. One aunt was a doctor, so has an MD, and another aunt has a PhD in humanities and social science. And so I think to see like the highest level of education represented in three different forms in these three women that played a big role in my childhood and growing up was really empowering for me and kind of got rid of any stereotypes I might have had of what women can or can't do or can't pursue before I ever had them. Like that was what I was exposed to before I was exposed to people at school thinking that women aren't smarter, girls aren't smarter, can't go and pursue things like engineering. So even though my dad was the engineer, I think like the high education in that aspect, it always felt like um gender kind of didn't even enter the equation for me. It wasn't something I realized was to something that could hold you back, I guess. And so to be able to perpetuate that to the next generation is definitely something that is really exciting and I would be happy to participate in. And I think as well, what would be helpful is just seeing more women in different stages of full-blown careers with children because I've met like people who have like professors and others who have started families while doing their PhD and to me I'm like I want to see more women who do that because that sounds so overwhelming to think of having a child while pursuing your PhD and kind of the busyness of that lifestyle. And I think it's just totally different than doing it as the father, as a husband. And so I think like another part of inspiring the next generation is kind of showing them how it's done. If you learn from those around you who have done things like not let kind of their been able to navigate having a demanding career and pursue their family goals at the same time is it's just good exposure to be around and see.
1,000%. And as you were saying that, honestly, the thing that kept popping in my head is that not all heroes wear capes,
Yeah.
because I feel like that applies in the situation where it truly is like it's like it's both ventures are possible, and like seeing that more is like so inspiring and empowering that like you can have what you want.
Mhm.
I thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome. And what about yourself, Joelle? How does it like leave you feeling with like knowing that your family also like had inspired you?
Well, it's been very exciting. I mean, I don't have kids of my own yet, but being able to participate in events like this and to talk to prospective students, I think it's been a great opportunity. Like I've heard from some friends that has also volunteered as mentors to current students. And some of them has mentioned like maybe attending one of my sessions like this and they've been inspired and has done projects and go onto the field. That really excites me because everyone can carve their own path. And then in the future, I'm sure I'll see a lot of you doing great things in the industry that you'd like, and being able to be part of that is really nice.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Like getting to take things from like different panels and different people that you hear. I feel like even like me myself hearing all of your stories, I'm leaving feeling very inspired. I truly I feel like I haven't stopped smiling. But yes, it's so important even to just like hear and meet women in the field and like talk about these kinds of things. I love that. And even there was another question in the chat if any of you like had an opinion or wanted to speak to this. It was just like inquiring about like what potentially like in your opinion you feel is being done or could be even done to kind of make like kind of discuss that gender like equality in engineering or even just like having that seeing that diversity and like promoting more within whether it be like in programs or even the industry if there are like things that you've seen that you've really liked if you wanted to touch upon that if you know things yeah
You
Yeah,
know, I can
so I
mention,
mean,
oops,
oh,
yeah
sorry, go Joel. Joel, go ahead.
sorry, I was just thinking
yeah
about actually of Tessa and how she has three kids now.
oh no way
The work from home topic, for example, has been like really contentious in the work field, and it kind of does uh, disproportionately negatively affect women that have families and stuff because they're still expected to take care of their family. But not all women nowadays would like to give up their career for that, right? So, if something can be done, maybe to kind of foster a different kind of environment to encourage women to still continue their careers, I think that would have an overall positive impact in different workplaces.
yeah absolutely thank you so much for sharing that absolutely
I mean, I would definitely agree. I do work primarily from home, so it definitely does make a lot of the domestic labor of having almost three kids a lot easier. Um, I was also going to say that I think something that can be done to help address the gender gap is more things like this. And it doesn't even have to be directed only to female students, but just showing that women are showing up in engineering, we're showing up in tech, we're everywhere that a guy might be, we're here too. And teaching that to young kids, both boys and girls, because I think, you can teach it to young girls, but young boys also need to be just as willing to see a woman in a position of power. And I had an experience where I was working in undergrad, and there was a male student who didn't really want to report to me because I was a woman and he didn't see me as an authority figure. So I think part of addressing the gender gap is addressing it with both genders and showing both genders that women belong in every technical and engineering field, just like men do.
absolutely absolutely completely echo everything you said and yourself, Lauren, if you wanted to speak or even just Agree.
Yeah, I don't have much to add beyond that last point, especially really resonated with me. Like the onus is not just on women to increase the representation of women in STEM, like it's on changing the way that young boys think, and that will have kind of ripple throughout their lifespans when they see more women involved.
Absolutely. I feel like it's a group effort. It's a network effort. And like having everyone plays a part. I feel like in all different situations like this. Incredible. Thank you all so much for sharing those things. I know we're nearing our end time. I One of the questions that kind of some people are touching upon in the chat is talking about this piece of like how you're potentially, this is going to be a little bit of a long question, but how your mindset has changed after like going through this journey that you have, like whether with through your university, through your career, and even if you have any advice for individuals kind of figuring out their journey.
So I would say my biggest mindset change is you never know what's around the corner, right? Like try not to close yourself off to new opportunities. And I think my biggest advice for someone, especially looking like what program do you want to study in undergrad, right? That's the first place you're going to start is, pick something that sounds like it resonates with you. I mean, you're so young, there's opportunity to change. There's opportunity to change your mind. Nothing is ever stuck in stone for good. Like there's always career pivots you can make even after graduation. You can always go back to school. I mean, Lauren went back to school, right? You can change your mind about what you want to be doing with your whole life. And thanks to modern medicine, a life is a long time now. And so you don't have to feel like what you're choosing at 17 is what you have to be retiring at 60. So there's lots of opportunities that you don't even know exist yet. So try to leave yourself open to them and don't be afraid to try something that, 17-year-old you might have thought was crazy.
I noticed
Stephanie, you're on mute.
and I noticed it right away within a split second. But wow, I couldn't agree more. I think the process of choice is so common nowadays where it feels like there's so many things, but it's that like every door can be the world can be your oyster, and every door you can have available to you, and what you choose, what you think you might want at 17, as like just even hearing from all of your experiences, there's been different things that you've tried, and you found yourself in places that you didn't initially think, and kind of learning about stuff about whether that it's that technical side and what you love in a technical side. And I think that's so important that what you know about yourself and what you like is going to be a never-ending journey almost. That's wonderful. And what about yourself, Lauren? Any advice, things that you've kind of gained, mindset changes?
I think it would be along a very similar vein of just there are typically a lot less rules than there seem to be or than you think there are, in that there's a lot that you can do to build your own program, build your own experience. If you have certain accommodations that you need to work out, like you just need to ask someone, and you often can. For me, like as one example, like transferred into engineering science, which typically it goes the other way after first year, and I identified that none of the other core eights interested me. What really interested me alone was energy, and the only way to study only energy and not all the other stuff in a discipline was to do the energy option of eng science. I was like, I really want to do this. I don't see another way. Can I do it? And then it turns out that there ended up being like three other people who transferred into eng sci with me that year, and it even though it's not as talked about or as common, like it is something you can do. And so everyone will find, like every year nearly, you'll find something that you want to do differently than what other people do. And there is nothing stopping you from at least asking, at least starting the process of asking people how you might go about doing that. And also, like, don't necessarily stop at your first no either, because there will be people along the way that do try to discourage you, maybe unnecessarily. And I think that you can continue to just figure out what you want and kind of craft your own path. Because it's very rare that you might follow some formulaic path that is set out for you.
Ash, I completely agree. Like, what a powerful message of like, the way I view it is it never hurts to ask. And even like kind of tying in back a message we've discussed is like advocating for yourself, even when you do potentially hear a no or like it can't go that way, like trying to find other avenues or other people you can kind of like work with and discuss about where you want to be. That's what a powerful message. Thank you so much. And what about yourself, Joelle?
Yeah, it's very similar to to what Tessa and Lauren said. The path is definitely not linear, so don't be afraid of any roadblocks. You can always pivot. This engineering is very serious, but at the same time, don't take it too seriously. Don't forget to have fun because when you're having fun, you keep yourself interested in doing more things, learning new things. And it also avoids the burnout because if you do choose engineering, there's a lot of long days and hard work. But if you're liking the program that you choose, I think you end up sticking to it. And yeah, I think it would be a great career in the end.
Absolutely, yes. I think that there's also so much to say about truly finding what you love and what you're passionate about. It really does translate into enjoying where you are and in just enjoying what you're doing every day. And that I feel like that always shows itself in the work and like the quality of what you do and just like loving where you are. So, and I think that what incredible messages. Oh my goodness. Thank you all so much. I feel like this has been like a wealth of knowledge for the past hour. All your answers were so insightful and thoughtful, and thank you so much for sharing. I know we chatted about some really important topics, and I think even just in general, like hearing all of your journeys and where you've found yourself, I found very helpful personally, and I hope the individuals joining us have also enjoyed and taken. I know I've taken a lot, and yeah, I can't say thank you enough for your time and for sharing with us tonight. And that's all we have. And yeah, just want to make I say thank you also to Katie on the back end for helping us in the chat and with questions, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you to everyone. And I know we'll be closing it now, but yeah, if you have any questions, I believe Katie has sent our email in the chat. Feel free to send those through. And yes, I hope everyone has a great, I'm not sure it could be your day, evening, afternoon, but I hope you have a great rest of